First of all, I would say that this is just the beginning of a Russian protest movement. From what I can see, Putin has been stealing from the Russian people for 20 years. Alexei Navalny has been the leading voice challenging Putin's theft. And Putin has massively overplayed his hand in a way that he's now made Navalny into a Nelson Mandela-like character.
Hi everyone, this is Dana Lewis, and welcome to Backstory. This edition on Russia Unrest. It started when the Kremlin decided to take out the main opposition leader Alexei Navalny with Novichok nerve agent in August. Navalny unexpectedly survived. Fast forward to late January, Navalny's return home. He's arrested at the airport in front of the world's media and sentenced on old, he says, fabricated fraud charges. And his parole, which conditions mandated his reporting to prison authorities routinely, but how do you do that if you're lying in a German hospital close to death from nerve agent poisoning? Anyway, Navalny's videos showing President Putin's corruption are deeply embarrassing. And one of them, giving a tour of Putin's billion-dollar palace near the Black Sea, has ignited unrest. Millions of people have seen the video. Millions more watched Navalny's arrest, and they answered his call to go to the street January 23rd and express their anger. Tens of thousands of protesters across 11 time zones. 2,000 people arrested. Brawls with police from Vladivostok in the Far East to big cities including Novosibirsk, Irkutsk, St. Petersburg, and Moscow. 60 cities in all. On this backstory, the dangerous work of being a journalist in Russia, and should there be more sanctions to pressure Putin to release Navalny, who prosecutors now want to jail for 13 years. The unrest has just started in Russia. All right, joining me now is Bill Browder, who is the CEO of Hermitage Capital Management. And Bill has a long history in Russia. And in fact, tragically, his lawyer at one point was jailed and died in a Russian prison. Bill, there are some scary parallels with what happened to Mr. Magnitsky and what's happening now to Navalny.
So Sergei Magnitsky was my lawyer. He uncovered a massive corruption scheme, and he was taken to prison in retaliation for uncovering it, and slowly tortured and killed in that prison on November 16, 2009, 11 years ago. That prison is Matroshka Tishina prison, which is translated into Sailor's Silence prison. And that's the same prison that Alexei Navalny is sitting in today, another anti-corruption activist, and another thorn in the side of Vladimir Putin.
Let's talk about what's happening in Russia right now. I mean, there are demonstrations across some 60 cities, unprecedented what we've seen today.
Well, first of all, I would say that this is just the beginning of a Russian protest movement. From what I can see, Putin has been stealing from the Russian people for 20 years. Alexei Navalny has been the leading voice challenging Putin's theft. And Putin has massively overplayed his hand in a way that he's now made Navalny into a Nelson Mandela-like character. He provided him an international platform by poisoning him with chemical weapons and not succeeding in killing him. And so the entire Western world is now fully aware of Alexei Navalny. And then Putin sealed his own fate by threatening Navalny with arrest if he returned to Russia, hoping that Navalny would stay out. But in fact, Navalny has risen to the challenge. And by showing that he's neither afraid of poison or prison, he's put Putin in a terrible position, because he's shown himself to be stronger than Putin could ever be. And he's made himself a very attractive figure for young Russians all over the country.
Navalny was poisoned with Novichok, a nerve agent, which no doubt was held by Russian authorities, because you don't buy it just at any drugstore. I mean, this is an illegally produced nerve agent, which by the way, Russia's a signature to the ban on chemical biological weapon production. But so they violated that. They no doubt, and you and I spoke before, this is not some rogue operation by the FSB, the Federal Security Service, because to poison somebody as high profile as Navalny within the country, surely it had Putin's consent.
No, they wouldn't. It wouldn't. It's not like they said, "Hey, boss, can we have permission to do this?" This is Putin's directive. Nobody touches Navalny, nor do they touch Boris Nemtsov, who was murdered in front of another opposition figure who was murdered in front of the Kremlin. I mean, there have been so many people who have challenged Putin's legitimacy who have been killed. The list goes on and on and on. Putin is a murderous, kind of a serial killer, if you will, and he needs to be stopped.
All right. I mean, a lot of people would doubt what you were saying a year ago, but suddenly I think this is different now inside Russia, because this has spread like wildfire on social media. There are tens of millions of views of the arrest of Navalny, the case of Navalny, the jailing of Navalny, and then his corruption video, which he put out, which basically accuses Putin of being little more than a gangland mafia state controller who has pocketed hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and built this incredible palace near the Black Sea.
The movie is incredible. I'm a expert on Putin's corruption. I've studied it for the last 15 years. But even as an expert, I learned a lot of new things in the movie, and it really makes your blood boil to see the extent of the luxury and the lavishness that Putin has given to himself at the expense of the Russian people. The average Russian can't even get medicine in a hospital, and Putin has vineyards and underground parking garages and underground skating rinks and arbitoriums and just all sorts of crazy stuff at this palace that's like 60 times the land is 60 times the size of Monaco. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, don't forget the pole dancing disco, and I might add that some of the protesters were carrying these brushes that you clean toilets with today, because apparently, the brushes in that mansion were purchased for something like $800 each. So they were carrying them as a symbol of corruption. So Bill, look, what is motivating the demonstrations? Is it just Navalny, or is it tough economic times with a pandemic, basically the suspension of democracy there, the extension of Putin's term until 2036 potentially? There are just a lot of things feeding into this now, creating a perfect storm.
Well, mainly is Putin has been ripping off the Russian people for the last 20 years. The main thing that's fueling this is the attempted assassination of Alexei Navalny, his arrest, and then Alexei finally calling people to go out into the streets specifically to free him, and enough is enough. Putin took a step too far in this case.
Do you think this is going to end quickly, or do you think this is the beginning? Because they have already called for more demonstrations next week.
This is going to be like Belarus, and it's going to more people. When people see what happened this week, more people will come out next week, and that's Putin's worst nightmare.
Should he be releasing Navalny now to put the fire out, or are we past that?
There's no way he can do that. You cannot. In Russia, it's like a prison yard. You can't show weakness. Putin is now a prisoner to his own actions at this point. Why
did they stupidly arrest him when he arrived back?
They had no choice. When they threatened him with arrest to try to keep him away, that was the moment that they made. That was their big mistake, because by having him come back, they couldn't not arrest him. But by arresting him, they've set off. They've lit the fuse on this situation, which is spinning out of control for them.
Will you just look down the road and tell me how you think that how this unfolds now, how the future goes now in Russia? Because a lot of people have always said, if there's a spark, Russia can burn. In terms of people, reaching their end of patience with Putin and the Kremlin, do you think this is the spark now?
I don't know. Alexei Navalny doesn't know, and Vladimir Putin doesn't know. It's anything could happen. What do the Russian people do? What does the international community do? What does Putin do? It's all very uncertain. It's a totally dynamic situation. But what I can say is that this is a mess of Putin's own making.
Last question: what should the international community do? Because we talked about sanctions before.
It's very clear. For the last 10 years, I've been advocating for a law called the Magnitsky Act, named after my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, who was murdered in Russian prison. The Magnitsky Act imposes visa sanctions and asset freezes on human rights violators. Alexei Navalny was one of the many Russian figures who supported the Magnitsky Act, along with Mikhail Khodorkovsky and another Russian opposition figure, Garry Kasparov, Boris Nemtsov, Vladimir Kara-Murza. All the major Russian opposition have realized this is the tool to be used. And this is the tool now which should be used. 31 countries have the Magnitsky Act, and it should be applied to the billionaire bankers and enablers of Vladimir Putin who are funding his regime and allowing him to do this terrible stuff.
Bill Browder, thanks. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
All right, joining me now from Moscow is Aleysa Marohovskaya. Hi, Aleysa.
Hi, Dana.
You're a journalist working for iStories Media.
Yeah, that's correct.
So what is iStories Media before we talk about what happened on the street? I mean, it seems that there's now a lot of independent digital media that's out there.
iStories Media, it's a kind of new media in Russia. It's a new project. It was founded by really famous in Russia investigative reporters like Roman Anin, Alesya Shmagun, and Roman Shlinov. They are made some great investigations. There was part of team who was working on Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and stories like that.
Sure. Panama was a very hot topic on money laundering and secret accounts overseas. But so essentially, media in Russia has been controlled traditionally by the Kremlin. When you take a look at the mainstream television channels, the main newspapers, there has been very little room for opposition or neutral media that's not controlled. How do you stay under the radar and report without being controlled?
So it's our choice to be small and independent media in Russia because, as you said, we couldn't be a professional journalism on the other medias. So we just choose this way. And that's why we are in internet. And here, Kremlin could not control everything. So we have a YouTube channel, our sites, and some space in social media, and we're just doing our job. And sometimes it's kind of dangerous, but I think that every investigative reporter in Russia realized that she or he has opportunity to be jailed, beaten, or something like that. But it's part of our job in Russia, and we are ready to face some problem from authorities. So it's like our normal life.
Are they trying to control digital media?
You mean our media?
Yeah.
No.
They're not trying to control it?
They couldn't. How?
Because they're trying to control the internet now, because they understand that so many people are getting their news from the internet.
They couldn't do it because we used social media and something like that. So if you want to control us, you need to control Facebook, Telegram, YouTube. So it's hard to do it. So they couldn't. They made some laws. For example, the last one is against people who texting something in social media, for example, or in sites, and have foreign financiation. So you became a foreign agent, and you have to pay
But
some.
we know how that law goes in Russia, because anybody that doesn't agree with the Kremlin will be accused of being a foreign agent, even if they're not.
Yeah. For this purpose, this law was made, I think.
Tell me about these demonstrations. You were in the middle of these yesterday. Were you at Pushkin Ploshchad? Were you at Pushkin Square?
Yes.
What happened there, and how did you come to be attacked by the police there?
It was a peaceful form of protest. People just stood and shouted slogans and held posters in support of Alexei Navalny, who was jailed illegally, or against corruption. So, and even before official start of action, police officer began to detain people in the square. People just were staying. People just choose, oh, okay, I have to pick this one. They took them, and sometimes if any of the protesters refused to go along with the police, when the officers took him by force, they could beat them, and sometimes such random detentions force everyone else to fight back with the police, and it was like local strikes. So I was working there like a journalist, and I was filming some scene of beating of people, and I was from one side, and I didn't see how another group of police and protesters was backing me, and I think that the policeman just probably didn't see that I was a journalist and hit me twice in the back and the neck with his arm, and I had a badge with a press card, but I think he didn't see it, so he just decided I was just protesters and tried to hit me.
Were you hurt?
Of course, it was hurt. Yeah, when you just feel it, it's very hard. But now I'm okay.
Tell me how unprecedented this is in Russia. I mean, this is not Belarus, where we've seen rolling demonstrations week by week by week since the election in the summer. It is not very often we see these huge crowds in Russia taking to the streets, and just not in one city, but I mean, dozens and dozens of cities yesterday. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, but if you want to compare with Belarus, yeah, it's kind of different protest because in Belarus people was fighting against the police. So, but yesterday I was seeing how people fight back with police, and it was a kind of unusual thing because in Russia, it's very scary to fight with police because they have no rules. They can beat you very, very hard. So, and I saw some things then people try to fight back, and it was really, really scary. But I think it's not enough to compare Russia with Belarus. So we more peaceful in this form of protest.
Well, not so peaceful in some of the scenes in St. Petersburg and other places, but what is happening? Why are people angry? Why are people really motivated? Because it takes a lot. I mean, I was based in Russia for over a decade. It takes a lot to get Russians to go to the street like they did.
I think people really, really tired because of corruption, because authority can make everything with every person in this country, and you can't feel that you're safe in this country, and you have to do something because Alexei Navalny is a very famous person, not only in Russia but in the world. But by the way, he in jail right now, and he not safe. And I think people they realize that they are not safe too, and they have to do something with it.
Will this grow?
Yes.
Why do you think?
It's really hard to say will or not. I think it will continue, but I don't know. Would it be more aggressive or not? So right now we waiting for rejection. We're waiting for situation when people will go to prison for yesterday's meetings. So we will see the reaction.
What do you think the Kremlin will do? Do you think they'll be tougher, or do you think they'll release Navalny? I don't think that they'll release him, because traditionally they just feel it's a challenge and they like to meet challenges head on, and they tend to be tougher rather than listening to people.
I think they will keep Navalny in prison. I think he will stay in here. So for a while, I don't know for how long he will in the prison, but I think he will in prison. I think that's all.
Lysium, you know, a lot of people
that Kremlin will make some good decision about him, because he is in Russia right now. So it was his choice, and I think he realized what if he will come in Russia, he will in prison. So,
you know, the Kremlin will come out this week and say that these were just a few hooligans and thugs, and that the majority of the population supports Putin.
Yeah, that's their position all the time.
What's the reality?
Reality, you mean?
What do people really think? Do you think? Is Putin now, with this video of this corruption in Putin's palace, the jailing of Navalny, the referendum in the summer, which extends Putin's term to 2036, potentially, just, you know, generally economic hardship, and people are not feeling very happy. What is the reality in terms of Putin's popularity?
You know, it's a really strange situation, but in Russia, lots of Putin supporters, lots of. They can feel very bad about living in Russia. They really poor, but they still support Putin. And if you ask them how is your life is going, they will tell lots of really, really sad story about his life. But if you will ask them, what do you think about Putin? They will say you that Putin is a great leader.
Well, so, not everybody.
Not everybody, of course. But as I think the majority will support Putin.
Are people tired of Putin?
They could be tired of Putin. You know, they could be tired of corruption. They could be tired of poor life or something like that. But they kind of scare change authority in their own country. And they try to keep his life in common way, you know, just, okay, I'm living right now, I have some money, I have some little opportunity, okay, I have no rights, but when people in Russia have rights, so they choose Putin because they called it stability, you know, and
that's the older generation, right? And I think the younger generation, you're part of a new generation, you obviously think different, and people on social media who went to the streets this weekend obviously are beginning to think differently.
Yeah, lots of people think differently. But if you talk about majority, I think majority will say what I said just now. Lots of young people, teenagers, so they disagree with this position at all. They don't want to be people who are happy just about to have some little money and that's all. They want to be person with human rights. They want to choose authority in their own country. So they don't want to live with corruption. Of course, they're different, and they just showed yesterday.
Last question. I know you're writing stories.
Yes.
How will your stories be different than the main channels controlled by the Kremlin about yesterday, about this weekend's demonstrations? What would I see in your journalism that I wouldn't see on the main Kremlin-controlled channel? How is it going to be different?
because it would be different, but I was just filming what is going on, and it's kind of truth. We will show with scene of violence from the police, and I think the pro-government media, they will talk about provocation from people who was in the square, and that they just beat police, and then police should react on these actions. But it was a kind of different. But they will take this way.
Aleysa Marohovskaya from iStories. Great to talk to you. Stay safe, be careful, and we hope to talk to you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's our backstory on Russia and unrest. Please subscribe to our newsletter at Substack. I'm leading you through the news of the day every few days. And if you can please subscribe to this podcast and share it, I'm working hard on this, and you can help me make it grow. I'm Dana Lewis. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.